Eye on South Asia is brought to you by Wells Fargo. Together we'll go far.
Hello and welcome to Eye on South Asia. I'm Bhavna Vanan.
And I'm Sunil Hali.
Every week, we'll bring to you the latest news, events, and happenings with South Asians living in North America. Sunil, welcome back to the show. We hear you were in India, right?
Yep.
How was your trip?
Very good, very useful trip. And it was a combination of business and pleasure, I should say.
Yeah, visiting family and friends.
Absolutely, but it's good to be back.
Yeah, that's great.
India is happening right now. Bhavna, we have to start this week's news on a somber note because we lost a fantastic student. And this is not the first time, but every time something like this happens, it really hurts.
Yes.
Because it leaves at least one family and many families connected with that family shattered. K. Seshadri Rao, who was studying in Boston, was found dead. Actually, when the cops were called and they were told that there is a body lying outside a house, and by the time they showed up, somebody was trying to work some life into his body, but I guess it was too late and he was pronounced dead.
Yes, this was a 24-year-old Indian student. He was studying a management degree at Boston University, and where he was found was actually very close to the university campus.
Right.
And we really don't know if this was an act of like gang violence or anything like that. There isn't any clear motive at this point in time.
His father does claim that since he was a brilliant student, there is a possibility somebody out of jealousy, because that is one factor that has been held against South Asians in this country, especially over the last few years since the economy has taken a downturn.
Yes.
And there has been a constant influx of Indians or South Asians in this country rather doing well.
Right.
So I think, he may have some credence, some weight in his statement. For his father, Sudhakar Rao, thinks that there is a possibility, it is a hate crime or out of jealousy.
Right.
But Commissioner Edward Davis has clearly said they have no idea. They are looking at all the leads and they are trying to figure out what could be the motivation. It's unfortunate, and the chief minister, who is an equivalent of governor of the state called Udishi, from where this young man came from, has felt very, very bad, and he feels that this kind of killing is barbaric and horrible. And he has talked to the foreign minister of India, including the ambassador to Washington, D.C., that they should be looked into it, and they should at least find out who the culprits are.
Yeah.
But the good thing is New York consulate came in handy, and as expected from them, they took care of the body and sent it back to his family. We send our condolences to Seshadri's family and hope he'll get peace.
Right. And something that was a little bit disturbing concerning that story is that I believe it's the fourth victim of homicide in Boston in the same week.
Yeah.
So the police commissioners are stepping up security efforts in that area to keep the place safe.
Normally, Boston is supposed to be a very quiet place, and it's a very academic type of atmosphere there. If you have visited Boston, it's very academic.
Yeah.
And something like this is very unprecedented. But I guess police they have to do something about it with the kind
Definitely they do, yeah.
spate of killings that we have observed over there. So moving on to the big stories of the week, there was the big India Business Conference that took place at Columbia University. That was the pinnacle of the last couple of weeks, where the focus was maintaining momentum. Very interesting subject by these business students from the South Asian Association, as it is called, SABA. It's called South Asian Business Association from Columbia University. And they took a very appropriate subject because India's story has been of a growth, constant growth in last 1 decade. And suddenly it seems to be coming under pressure and slowing down. They're not able to maintain that growth.
Right.
So the question that is coming in front of everybody today, is India capable of maintaining its momentum? And since they are struggling to maintain its growth trajectory, and sometimes it seems there's a lack of political will or possible structural constraints, nobody knows, but it's leading to the decline of the investors' confidence in India. Somehow that seems to be a perception for a little while.
Right. And this is also related to the fact that India's relationship with the US has a little bit of a losing steam, or what insiders and observers are speaking of.
In a way, yes, no. As we'll progress in the other areas of this week's stories, US is still gung-ho about India because that seems to be their best ally in the Southeast Asian region. But it's actually the internal, as I told you, the question is there a lack of political will, or is it losing the steam, or is it the investors are generally losing confidence in India? Maybe it has already reached its peak, but which is not the case. Whatever it is, there seems to be a slowdown.
Yeah.
And the question that was being discussed here at this conference was, can India maintain momentum? And they had fantastic lineup of people. They had obviously Ambassador Nirukumar Rao, and they had Mr. Mudut, who is the Managing Director of Muthoot Finance. They had Arvind Panagria. They had Anup Singh, who is the Director of International Monetary Fund. They had Rajesh Jain, founder of Netcore Solutions. They had Manoj Singh, the Chief Operating Officer of Deloitte, and he spoke very, very well. They had obviously Ron Summers, the omnipresent and big man from the US IBC, and then they had Dr. Alex Sprecher. They had obviously the two other glorious sisters, Dr. Kiran Bedi and Anup Aishwarya. And the forum was really well received. It had a great attendance, and good things that were discussed, especially Manoj Singh, who is, as I told you, Chief Operating Officer of Deloitte. He said, look, Indian companies are world class. The companies that have been launched in last decade in India are absolutely international in standard, and the people who have launched are having great entrepreneurial skills. And the main aspect to maintain the growth of a company is that they should be able to engage, they should be able to develop, they should be able to deploy people in the high growth areas. They should be looking for the proper sourcing, proper training, proper development of their people, and if they want to achieve their strategy and success.
Right. And two key things that they wanted to highlight in this were optimizing human capital processes.
That was his focus.
Yes, as well as better serving the entire value chain and seeing that the process is very streamlined without any hiccups from the design phase to engineering to production, marketing, all those phases in a company's execution.
And he feels that the areas where India will see a real growth is manufacturing, obviously services, which has been the case, and IT, which he expects to continue. These are the three major areas where he expects us to continue to grow, but of course he expects that there will be other areas where the middle class, which will push it further, is in the mortgage, credit card services, wealth management services, and and the other area that he expects is the renewable energy, especially the solar area, and civil aviation, where he expects a high usage of the service at the domestic level. So he was very, very emphatic that Indian companies that have been launched are absolutely world class, and India has a great growth story. And the real storm that was created at the conference by these two sisters, Dr. Kiran Bedi and Anup Aishwarya, they were phenomenal. And I mean, Anu is an expert on the Indo-American immigration and the laws of India and she knows how to, she explained to the students how you can, without much hiccups, go from a student status to a business status. And then the other sister, Dr. Kiran Bedi, was brought in. This is the first time they brought an individual with that kind of a mandate who will talk about the value of honesty and integrity in the growing India. And she has been quite in the forefront for last 1 year when she joined Anna Hazare's movement, and she was the face of Anna Hazare movement.
Right.
Not that this is the first time you have seen her, because Dr. Kiran Bedi has been known to be protagonist of values, integrity, honesty, guts, courage for last, I think it's been 4 decades. She retired almost as the commissioner of New Delhi Police, and they did fantastically very well.
Right.
Moving to the international scenario, Bhavna, there seems to be concern again in the developing situation in Palestine. We have had various kind of resolutions between the two parties, the Israelis and the Palestinians, about how to occupy the land by mutual peace. And there has been resolutions from United Nations, there have been Oslo Accords, there has been the Arab Peace Plan, there has been a quartet principle, but it seems that the way it was defined, that the Palestinians will be allowed to have their own state of Palestine, and the East Jerusalem will serve as their capital, but somehow it seems the Israelis are not listening to that, and they are settling in that area.
Right.
Which
They're
is not
seeking to occupy the lands within Palestine, and this is what India is taking, the side of having Palestine have a sovereign state.
Yes.
And have its own borders, and limit this occupation of Israeli, because it's leading to vicious acts of violence against the civilians within Palestine, and it's really slowing down the peace process between these two countries.
In fact, last few years things have really progressed well, but it's only very recently again you see these developments in the West Asia which have caused concern and the stalemate of the peace process, and that's why India's permanent representative to United Nations, Dr. Hardeep Singh Puri, has made a very, very clear statement that we must, as India, we will always support the Palestinian cause. And we expect that, like you said, they should have their own sovereign nation. And they feel that the undermining of this process will not really help the region, and we need to go back to the drawing table of negotiations, but under the rules that were established under these 3 and 4 accords, especially the Oslo Accord.
Right.
And I hope that happens, and there is some continued peace in that particular region, which has seen really, really lots of lives lost.
Yes, and it's nice to know that India is taking a stand on many issues in the Middle East and has really served as a kind of leader or a mediator in several peace issues, whether it's the nuclear situation with Iran or Afghanistan, the peace process there, or here with Palestine and Israel.
India is the growing global leader, so it has to at least have
step up to the plate and
have a
take
position.
lead. Exactly.
Yeah. Perfect timing with the way India is taking the lead, and the US expects to have a continued growing role. As I was mentioning you earlier, they have sent a very, very capable first American woman to head the US mission in India. Of course, she has had a glorious past. She has been the highest rank in US Foreign Service and has been in a career of ambassadorship. She has been to Bangladesh, she has been to Togo. She has earlier worked as Assistant Secretary for African Affairs. She has been Principal Deputy Assistant Secretary for African Affairs. She has been a Consul General in India in Kolkata. And she has also been a Minister for Counselor for Political Affairs in the US same embassy, where she's gone as an ambassador. So people expect a lot from Nancy Powell, and the beauty is that she was there and she greeted the Indian community in 10 different languages, because India is supposed to have hundreds of dialects and several languages. Taking a lead on that, she said hello to India in 10 different languages.
That is very nice.
Really
and
fascinating.
Yes, and she has been stressing that very key India-US partnership just as a general dialogue and really just to reintroduce herself back to India. And yeah, her segment has been translated in several different languages for the Indian people to view and understand. And she's really going to be a key person in this relationship.
Absolutely. And on the other hand, in the US, our own Mrs. Rao, who is the India's ambassador to US, had recently a meeting with the House Foreign Relations Committee's chairperson, which is actually a woman this time, Representative Alina Ros-Lehtinen. I think I'm pronouncing it right. Alina Ros-Lehtinen. She's the Republican from Florida, and she is the chairwoman of the House Foreign Relations Committee. And Ambassador Rao met with her, and they discussed, this is a periodic discussions, and they continue to discuss about the strategic partnership between the two countries and of course the regional situation around India, whether it's Maldives or Sri Lanka or China or Pakistan or Afghanistan. They had a good discussion, and the office of the House Foreign Relations Committee chairperson made a statement: the future is bright for the US-India partnership, which continues to further both nations' goals of peace and stability in the region.
Right. All right, Sunil, we are going to take a short break, but we will continue this discussion right after the break on Eye on South Asia.
Eye on South Asia is brought to you by Wells Fargo. Together we'll go far.